Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Melton Borough Council. Evacuation procedures. In the event of an evacuation, the council chambers, please leave one of the 6 emergency exits around the side of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of meeting. There's a legislation that allows the public to film, record and use social media at the council meeting. This must not disrupt the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. Please switch mobile phones to silent. Microphones. Councillors and officers are reminded to use the microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. Electronic voting. Tonight we'll be using the electronic voting system. This means that votes will be carried out via the microphone handset. When voting is taking place, you will be given the option yes, abstain and no. And there will be 3 buttons flashing beneath the options. When the voting is open, please select the corresponding button in order to register your vote. I will now pass over to Reverend Dr. Mary Barr to offer prayers.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. One of our local churches is dedicated to St. James Burton Lazars. And at a service I was leading this morning, we were thinking about James. One of the letters in the New Testament is attributed to James, and he offers words which I think are good advice for any public meeting. James wrote, "Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And so a prayer. Lord God, thank you for all that is good in the life of our town of Melton Mowbray and the surrounding villages. As the Borough Council meets this evening, we pray for careful and attentive listening, for wise and thoughtful speaking, and for a generous spirit, especially between members who hold different views on difficult subjects. We pray for harmony and goodwill in our communities and in our nation. And we also long for peace in those parts of the world where violent conflict is causing such great suffering. Lord, please help each of us to play whatever part we can in promoting the welfare of all people. This we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absences. Apologies of absence have been received for Councillor Clay. Does anybody else have any apologies to give? Please raise your hand.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Alison Freer.
Thank you.
Councillor Webster as well.
I can therefore confirm that we have 25 members present in the meeting and apologies as noted. Item number 2, to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of May 2025, 21st of May 2025 and the 19th of June 2025. I propose the minutes are moved. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Clancy, thank you. Before I even ask the question, do I have any member wishing to make any comments to the minutes? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. It's just a short one, actually. It's on page 10 for the 15th of May. It's on page 10, and it's to do with the Mayor's speech. What it is, it's the second paragraph down, and it's on the second, halfway through the second on for that paragraph. And it says, I look forward to severing and promoting all that is best within the borough and the town of Melton Mowbray. I think the severing should have been serving. Just bring that forward.
You be corrected.
Thank you.
Councillor Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just clarify, are we going to be voting on these collectively or together? Only I can't vote on them together because I wasn't here for one, but I was for the other two.
They have been moved on block.
Okay, if they've moved on block, I'll have to abstain then.
Certainly, Councillor Higgins.
Point of clarification, I understand that even if you're not at a meeting, you can still vote for them if you believe they're a true, accurate record.
That's correct. Proceed to the vote now, please. That's 24 and 2 abstentions. No, it should be 22.
Oh, sorry, 23 for 2 abstentions, sorry.
23 for abstention. Thank you. Declaration of interest. If any member would like to indicate that they have an interest to declare, would they please raise their hand to do so now?
Yes, I'm not sure if I can stay in or not because I had a word with, Clive Tobin, and he's not sure if I could stop in at the time or not. It's to do with number 14, and it's to do with the censure on agenda 14. Yeah.
Can I pass on to Clive?
So we don't have a separate process in relation to censure, and it's considered under the usual council rules. And there is, I do not think that this classes as an interest that would require you to leave the room or prevent you from speaking. So you can remain.
Yeah, could I just emphasise that? You're saying that I can remain. That's lovely, thank you.
On unarrestable interest in respect of Councillor Jo Olsen, it's taken as being on record for any matters which relate to Leicestershire County Council. Item number 4. I will now make my announcements. There should have been a sheet up on the screen. While I'm doing that, I've had quite a busy start. There we go. Some of it was extremely interesting, which was the miniature railway challenge. I knew nothing about miniature railways beforehand. I'm a lot wiser now, and actually it was interesting to see that there were so many people there from different countries taking part in the challenges, and British Rail actually got first prize, which was really interesting. I also did the Lord Mayor Civic Service at the Leicester Cathedral, which was great, and unexpectedly I was taking part in the opening of the new Turkish restaurant, which was a fantastic venue, and we had a really good time. Not me.
So stop sharing. Yeah. Go to YouTube. Mike's up for some reason.
Try, carry on now.
Right. Last Thursday, I took part at the circus at Gates's. I ended up being part of the Clowns Act, which was absolutely brilliant. And at the Animal Defence Centre, I ended up having to wear a Second World War uniform, had a gun and everything. So it was quite an interesting start to this. I'd like to hand over to the Deputy Mayor, Jim Arcott.
Thank you, Mom. You'll forgive me if I don't stand. No, I've had an interesting start as well. Obviously, it's a bit daunting. I was explaining to somebody it was a bit like being in the TARDIS and you land and then you open the door and come out and then you have to work out what it is you're actually attending and take it from there. But luckily, all the events I attended were, in fact, were very well organised, very civilised, and very well done. I went to the phase 2 of the Villiers exhibition at the Carnegie Library. He was the Duke of Buckingham. He was assassinated. So I read up on all of that, but it turned out that the real reason they mentioned him was that, in fact, there was a picture of him that they'd renovated. And round that, they developed the concepts of the artistic development of various things and poetry and so on. But it was very well done. I was very impressed with it. The 27th of June was judging the young hounds at the Corn Hunt. Once again, very well organised, very professional, and you know, I don't say this, you know, simply because I should say it, but it was really very impressive. Clearly, they are a formidable institution, and they did a very good job, and they were also very hospitable. I also met the MP there, who was there with his wife, supporting the event. Last one, was 28th of June, was the Armed Forces Parade in Leicester. That was also interesting, obviously a rather different approach to the other two events, but it was, as one would expect with the armed forces, it was professional, well done, informative, and actually quite well attended. So all three were really very, very impressive, and they impressed me and indeed my wife, who I can tell you is not easily impressed. Anyway, we'll see what the future holds. So far, so good.
Thank you. I now like to invite the leader, Councillor Arnott, to provide us with his announcements.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure that the Deputy Mayor's wife is impressed by the Deputy Mayor, which I feel certain about that. May I thank you, first of all, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish our colleague, Margaret Clay, and family best wishes as she faces her particular challenges. I also wish to repeat in public our very best wishes to our MP, Edward Arger, and his family in whatever confronts them at the present time. Edward is always a pleasure to work with. I extend my thanks to Edward Arger for using his last opportunity as Shadow Secretary of State for Health at the dispatch box in Parliament on Tuesday to raise the temporary closure of St Mary's Birth Centre and its ongoing plight, an issue I know many residents feel very strongly about, as do several members here, particularly Councillor Cliff. I thank him for his ongoing support with this matter, and I'm equally grateful that West Streeting has agreed to meet with him over the issue in the event that the temporary closure looks like it might turn into something more permanent. I would say that whatever the outcome of current discussions, we must ensure that local women retain access to the high quality maternity and postnatal care St Mary's is well known for. And on the maternity front, I'm delighted to congratulate one of our senior housing officers who welcomed a baby boy to her family on the 21st of July. We wish her and her family very well. The same wishes are extended to another officer in the planning department who has been blessed with a baby girl. For me, this demonstrates once again that the short-term pain of labour can bring forth great joy and happiness. That is a joke. In the housing department, we have a new member in the team, and this has created an opportunity to review housing officer patches. The details of the new patches will be included in this week's members' bulletin, and for the avoidance of doubt, these patches are community areas and not a staff scheme to give up smoking. Madam Mayor, this week we have welcomed a new officer and a new role of Green and Open Spaces officer. This will help our efforts to improve our allotment service, and I hope we'll be turning over a new leaf soon. Since our annual meeting, we have recruited 2 full-time planning officers, and we now have a capital project manager to support the asset development programme as it starts to really take off. 2 members of staff will be receiving their 10-year long service awards, and in September we will welcome another recruit as our Waste and Environmental Services Project Officer. A key part of her role will be supporting our continued plans and preparations to implement a food waste collection service. And Madam Mayor, on waste collection generally, recently I visited on a fact-finding mission to another authority. I was informed that residents now have 5 separate waste bins, a weekly collection of food, a fortnightly collection of general waste, and a 3-weekly collection of 3 separate recycling bins. This means that every 12-week cycle, a resident will experience 4 collections of 1 bin, 4 collections of 2 bins, and 2 collections of 4 bins, and 2 collections of 5 bins, but not necessarily on the same day of the week. I hope you're following this. Over a 3-year period, there will be a pattern of 13 12-week cycles interspersed by 18 standard public holidays, not including coronations and special holidays. I'm therefore very pleased to announce that this particular local authority is not going to form part of any reorganisation or devolution with ourselves. Last Friday I met at the request of Councillor Ronan Brown a small group of Conservative members to discuss their ideas on 5 topic areas. And I'm not going to cover all of that, but arising from our discussion, I would like now to clarify the rules around the 8-week and the 13-week determination period for planning applications. I will discuss this further with the Chair of Planning and the portfolio holder to arrange for more information to be published. The statutory clock for determining a planning application by 8 weeks for small applications and 13 weeks for large applications starts ticking once the application has been validated. And validation means that the local planning authority has received all the necessary documents, plans and the correct fee. And believe it or not, sometimes that's overlooked by the applicant. In June 2013, the government of the day first introduced percentage-based performance thresholds for planning application decisions and published improving planning performance criteria for designation. The current thresholds set by government are for major applications, at least 60% must be determined within 13 weeks or as agreed with an extended period, and for non-major applications at least 70% must be determined within 8 weeks unless agreed for an extended period. Now, authorities falling below these thresholds, that's of 60 and 70%, may be what's called designated, and this means applicants can bypass the council and apply directly to the planning inspectorate. And measured against the criteria, MBC is doing well, but of course the criteria does imply that some applications will take longer than 8 or 13 weeks. So we are going through an improvement productivity review to raise our game even higher, because those minority of users who experience delays have a right to ask for a better service, because the impact on an individual is of course always 100%. As a quick litmus test, I've taken a snapshot over the 14 weeks from the 7th of April to Friday the 18th of July. And very briefly, 55 applications were received during this time. That is from week 1 to week 14 in the period. And 38 of these are still pending consideration. 22 of them are still within the time, the 8 or 13 week target for the time. Of the 16 which are not, the reasons include the following: negotiations with the applicant to seek a better design, requirement for the submission of additional information, and required reconsultation following receipt of amended plans. Now, where amendments or additional information is required, officers will always seek an extension of time with the applicant or their agents. And this snapshot covers a multitude of other details, mostly good, but some needing a bit more attention. We are not complacent, and my request to all elected members is that you do not simply talk generally about anecdotal dissatisfaction, but specify particular complaints so that we can quantify the problem accurately and add it to the review. Madam Mayor, can I refer to Council Minute 21 of May at C14, the resolved item 3. On a vote with the Conservative group being whipped to abstain, we did in fact agree to divert underspending on councillors' allowances back into the community. In the debate, I made it very clear that all members could make suggestions to me about worthy causes across the borough. We agreed a 50-50 split between Melton Town and the rural parishes. I reminded all members of this in 2 emails subsequent to that, and I'm pleased to announce that some very good ideas have been tabled. They have been assessed, and following due diligence checks, a list will be published quite shortly. I wish to thank all councillors who have made suggestions, and those community groups who I hope will have make good use of the cash. Now, prior to the Conservative group's demand for the extraordinary meeting, I did offer to forego tonight my leader's announcement in order to facilitate more time to discuss parking issues. Councillor Brown declined my suggestion, which is fair enough, and I know that 2 members were not present, and in fact 1 is not present this evening, unfortunately. So for their benefit and for general information, I can report that I have been updated on the various actions set out on the agreed resolution, most of which were in fact in hand before the extraordinary meeting anyway. The review by the Chief Internal Auditor and impact on town and the assessment of the impact on town centre footfall are progressing well, and the Chief Executive is expecting to be in a position to table the final lessons learned report at the Audit and Standards Committee for consideration in September, and we all look forward to that. My own provisional observations of the events are that the opportunity-free parking trial was a great success. Many residents were pleased to keep the money in their pockets, naturally, but initial evidence is that completely free parking limits churn and therefore fairness. We are right to continue our programme of repairs, renewal and innovation, and all members have to weigh whether the cost should be borne by residents as taxpayers or residents as motor vehicle users. Of course, motor vehicle users include non-residents. As we start the budget round for 26-27, all councillors and members of the public will have an opportunity to consider all of these issues in the round, Madam Mayor. And finally, Madam Mayor, tomorrow I'm meeting our 2 new county councillors to discuss matters of shared interest. But next week they will join Councillor Brian Lovegrove, County Councillor for Belvoir, the County Council portfolio holder for flooding, and officers of the LLFA, and I think also the EA, together with Councillor Margaret Glancy, to discuss a range of flooding and environmental issues. This has largely been facilitated by Councillor Sharon Brown, who I thank for this, partly wearing her Mo's hat, and I understand that they'll be taking the aforementioned cluster of worthies down the river as far as Rhubarb Island. She might even bring them back. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We had one question from the public by Kelly Davis. Unfortunately, she's not here, so I will read out the question. On the 12th of February, in response to the question that was asked as part of the public question time, the leader of the council claimed that the Discover Melton brand and website have been successfully raising awareness and increasing visitors by 40%. Can the council please explain how they are certain that the increase is solely down to this Discover Melton brand and not down to the factors including but to limited to the work done by Melton Bit, social media posts posted by local content creators, wider press coverage due to PR teams hired by businesses and even organised, etc. via positive recommendation from previous events and business attendees, word of mouth by locals encouraging people to visit the business events that previously not have attended, an increase in event of offering compared to the last calendar year, plus attending wider variety of clientele in the area. I've asked Councillor Almond to respond, please.
Madam Mayor, if you require me to, I can read out my answer, but she will be sent it, obviously. I will read it as written. Thank you for your question. It appears there may have been a misinterpretation regarding the statement. The increase referenced pertains specifically to the rise in website visitors to the Discover Melton site, which has seen an increase of over 40%. This metric underscores the effectiveness of the Discover Melton brand and website in raising awareness. We acknowledge that the various factors, including the efforts of the Melton bid, social media activity, press coverage, word of mouth, and an increase in event offerings also contribute to the overall visitor numbers in Melton. The Council appreciates and values the collective efforts of all stakeholders promoting our community. So I say thank you for your continued support and engagement, and I'd be delighted to see you here on another occasion. But if you have any other questions relating to this topic, please send them in and I will endeavour to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Almond. Item number 7, questions from members. 2 questions from members have been received. The question and written responses have been tabled, and I will ask the questionnaire if they would like to ask a supplementary question. In accordance with the procedure rules, may I remind questionnaires that the supplementary question must arise directly from the original question or the reply. First question was from Councillor Joe Arnott to the Chair of the Audit and Standard Committee and related to the format of the leader's announcement at Council. Councillor Olsen, in relation to the response from your first question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It's not so much a supplementary question, it's just thank you to the Chairman of Audit, and we simply look forward and fingers crossed it will go to the Constitution Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The second question was also from Councillor Joe Ormans to the leader of the Council related to the Asset Development Programme. Councillor Olin, in relation to the response to your second question, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I'd like to make a comment, if that's okay, all related to the answers. Because it was a...
It has to be a question, I'm afraid.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Olnett for coming back onto it. Obviously, I'm going to be disappointed with that he doesn't see a need to maybe, if there's an opportunity, to reopen the conversation with the national hotel chain. I take that on the chin. Disappointed, but that's the way it goes. But I would like to make, his answer was quite a scattergun approach, as you well know, and he brought up things that I didn't think really related to the question. And so therefore I would like to respond to some of the statements he made.
I'm afraid you only can ask a question, not respond.
Ask a question on the response.
Yes,
although the response doesn't relate to the question in the first place.
All you can do is ask a question, I'm afraid.
Let me have a quick think about that. I can't really spin it into a question. It's more comment, to be honest, so I have to back off on that one. But I think it's important in the future that any answers are examined and they are kept to the subject, basically, because, like I say, the leader did use a scattergun approach to this and raising things like the bypass, raising things like SDR. It just goes on. Street
Thank you.
furniture.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Item number 8, motion of notice. There's one motion of notice to hear this evening. I invite Councillor Chubb to respond to the outline of the notion and move on to the notion. You may speak for 10 minutes. Councillor Chubb.
Thank you very much, and thank you for including the motion. I wish to propose the motion as it stands in the orders. If I may, I'd like to speak from a personal perspective as to why I propose this motion. For descendants and families of those who fought in the Far East, VJ Day is a poignant date. Not only did it mark the end of the Second World War, but it also ended a savage and brutal conflict that left deep scars and trauma. Those close to those who came back often did not know what they'd been through. Many chose not to speak of their experiences and the horror they had endured, particularly those who'd been incarcerated in the Japanese prisoner of war camps. Often, they could not speak of what they had endured or seen. Either they could not, or they did not want to burden their families and friends. The trauma of 5 years of war had come to an end. People wanted to look forward. The cruelty they'd endured was unimaginable. To hear the stories of those who survived the Burma Death Railway, the death marches, the gunning down of prisoners as they escaped from sinking prison ships, the starvation, the beatings and the torture is truly humbling. They were a remarkable generation, tough and proud. Whilst many were haunted by what they'd seen, they did not seek self-pity, nor did they consider themselves heroes. It was something they'd experienced, and they had to get on with it and do their duty. My father was held by the Japanese for 4 years and eventually released by the Russians. Like most of the prisoners of war, he would only talk of others and not himself. It was at the reunions when I understood what they had really endured. I still remember the profound sense of humility when I learnt what they'd experienced. If he were here today, no doubt he would probably feel uncomfortable me talking about this. As I said, they did not seek self-pity, nor did they consider themselves heroes. It is their fortitude and resilience I remember. They were extremely close-knit, and I was privileged to see this unique bond of the Far Eastern prisoners of war. I learnt of many stories, and I saw the work my father did to help and support many, particularly the widows and those unable to look after themselves. In helping form the clubs, he understood the importance of a place where they could gather and talk amongst one another. Humour and comradeship were part of the healing. One particular story resonates. John Wilkinson, a naval stoker, took food from the camp for his friend who lay dying in a threadbare hospital. He was caught. The prison guards tied him to a pole in the middle of the parade ground. The Allied prisoners were forced to line up and watch the punishment. The camp commandant savagely beat him with a baseball bat 206 times. He was unconscious and lay bleeding heavily on the ground. The only reason it stopped was the camp commandant was exhausted. The Allied doctors who took him away could not believe anyone could survive what he had endured. He was a proud Geordie, and he was a Royal Naval heavyweight boxing champion. Mark my words, they do not come harder than that. He survived. He symbolised the resistance and the courage of the POWs. They would not be cowed nor beaten. There are countless stories of the bravery of individuals. In remembering VJ Day, there will be various commemorations. On Thursday, 14th of August, there will be a service in Leicester Cathedral at 5:30. In attendance will be the Royal Leicestershire Regiment Association. Everyone is welcome. This historic and proud regiment, the Tigers, saw significant action in the Far East during World War II, particularly in Malaya and Burma. They fought with great bravery as part of the 14th Army, also known as the Forgotten Army. They played a crucial part in halting the Japanese. Many were captured and spent time in prisoner of war camps, and I am aware that 12 men from this area perished in those camps. On the 15th of August, please remember them and all those who gave their lives to defend us. I would recommend a visit to the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire. There is an exhibition to those who fought in the Far East, including sections of the Death Railway and the replica prison huts. It is truly fascinating and a tribute. I will be there at a service on Sunday the 17th of August. In concluding, may I be permitted to read the Far Eastern Prisoners of War prayer. It was composed by Corporal Arthur Ogden, who'd been in the 1st Battalion, the Royal Leicestershire Regiment. As we that are left grow old with the years, remembering the heartache, the pain and the tears, hoping and praying that never again man will sink to such sorrow and shame. The price that was paid we will always remember. Every day, every month, not just in November. We shall remember them. I therefore hope that members will be able to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Councillor Ronan Brown to second, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, happy to second. So I'm going to say a few words just following what David said, which is very poignant and very, very personal. But just for us all to remember what really went on, I'd just like to read out the following words I put together. Through the early months of 1945, the 14th Army fought intensely and pushed determined Japanese forces back through hundreds of miles of malaria-infested jungle, supported by continual supply drops from the air. In the Pacific, Australian forces faced fierce resistance on Borneo, and the US forces fought to take the strategically important islands of Iwo Jima and Okinawa, battles which were marked by appalling levels of casualties. After Okinawa fell on the 22nd of June, an invasion of the Japanese home islands was planned, with enormous levels of casualties expected. Before the invasion was to take place, the most destructive war in history came to a rapid end. On the 6th of August, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 2 days later, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan, followed by a huge attack on the 9th of August. That day also saw the dropping of the second atomic bomb over Nagasaki. The number of deaths from the bombs has been estimated as high as 200,000. Recognising that victory was impossible, the Japanese government finally accepted the Allied surrender terms on the 14th of August. The following day was declared Victory over Japan Day, VG Day. Joy at the end of almost 6 years of global war and hope for the future burst out in towns and cities across the Allied nations, as well as on former battlefields. Parties and parades were held from New York to New Delhi, from Manchester to Melbourne. Tens of thousands of Allied prisoners of war had to be located across vast areas, including the Japanese mainland. They had been under appalling conditions, and many had to work as forced labour. The process of demobilisation began for British and Commonwealth forces, although thousands remained on active service in occupied Japan and the Southeast Asia Command. Depending primarily on Indian troops, reoccupied Malaya, the Dutch East Indies, and the French Indochina where new nationalist conflicts were beginning. Yet VG Day was a day of final relief, and to give grateful recognition for the sacrifice of those who served, we remember them 80 years on. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate. I invite members to raise their hand if they wish to speak. Please note that you must not exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to firstly say on behalf of the Labour Group that we entirely endorse and support the motion before us tonight. There have been very powerful testimony in a sense to what was what our soldiers and service people underwent in actually fighting this war. And it's right and proper that we remember them, we remember their sacrifice, and we remember the toll it took upon those who were part of it. I just wanted to add a personal aside of my own. And if it sounds light-hearted, it's not meant to make light of the subject. But when I saw the motion, I recalled an old friend of mine from the 1980s in Kent called Pat Moran. And Pat Moran was known for two things. One was his conviviality and his hospitality in entertaining any visitors to Deal to a tour of all the hostelries on Deal seafront, which was quite an event because Pat has, as you would say, hollow legs and was always encouraging you to have just one more. The second thing he was well known for was he was a leading activist in the Burma Star Association. I believe he was active at both local and national level. And he himself had been a member of the forgotten 14th Army in Burma. And it so happened on the 15th of August, one year in the 1980s, I was being entertained on Deal High Street by Pat Moran. And at one point in the evening, and we'd gone to a little hostel, a hidden away hostelry where there was a few of his friends, also ex-service people. And he said, on this date, I think we ought to raise a toast. And he asked us all to raise our glasses. And the toast he offered was to peace. And I think sometimes, whilst it's right that we honour the sacrifice of all those who fought on our behalf, that what they were fighting for ultimately was peace. And that was the most important achievement for them. Those who came back, whether it was from the Far Eastern Theatre, in the case of my father from the Middle East, although, as an aside, my father was 2 days off getting on a boat in Suez to go to the Far East when VJ Day came about. But what they were fighting for was peace and our future. And while we look around the world today, sometimes that peace seems a bit fragile. We, as a nation, have had 80 years in which we haven't had to call upon our young people to serve in the way that our parents or our grandparents did. And I think we owe them a huge debt because of that. So, as I say, wholeheartedly support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allnutt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I first of all thank Councillor Chubb and Councillor Brown for bringing this to the Chamber this evening in the terms that he did. When I've written about VE Day and spoken in of VE Day in this chamber before, I have asked us to remember VJ Day as well. So I'm delighted that you've done it in those terms. And the reason for that is that members of my family, we had one taken prisoner at Singapore, went to Changi. One died in the Far East, and we had another member of the family who was in the Royal Navy. What has always impressed me, of course, is that it's not just the armed services were involved, but the civilians, the wives who were wives of British service personnel in Singapore who were taken prisoner and who suffered, and the Singaporeans themselves. But as has been said, and the advent of the atomic bomb or the hydrogen bomb has been mentioned, and I'm grateful for Councillor Brown's reference to peace, we move on. New generations come along, but we should never forget, and my wholehearted thanks to Councillor Chubb for raising it in the way that you have. My heart goes out for you and your family and all your memories. God bless you.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, my own family is quite interesting. Of course, being farmers, my father was in a reserved occupation, so he didn't have wasn't called up to the UK Army, but the closest I got to it was the Orsons were a very small family. And the only relations we really have live in West Texas, and they emigrated in 1909, came back to fetch the family. That was Frank Orson, who lived at the Harby. And of course, First World War occurred, and then he finally emigrated 1919, where a number of children were born. And there was a guy called Oliver Wilton Orson. And he was a vet in West Texas, and he was called up to the US Marines at the outcome of the war, and obviously went straight into battle against the Japanese, captured very early on. And he did talk about his experience in the Japanese prisoner of war camp, which was pretty awful. And as the Allies slowly but surely advanced across the Pacific, the prisoners of war were retreated. And by the time 1945 came round, he found himself on a prisoner of war camp on mainland Japan. Obviously, 2 nuclear bombs were dropped, and VJ Day came. Very quickly, the Americans understandably flew relief airplane parachute drops into the prisoner of war camps, and Wilton had survived all the horrors of 4 years of Japanese war prison, and he come through unscathed. The first parcels started to drop, he ran out, and one dropped on him, crushed both his legs, and had to have them both amputated. So it's a shocking story, but anyway, he lived to a good age of 91, and he said he saw the funny side in his sad experience. But like I say, he did talk about the experience, and it was absolutely horrific. So my heart goes out to the Orson family in West Texas.
Councillor Gordon, please.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with this. Yes, so I do support it. But I just wanted to add something. When I was at St Mary's Church, and it was to do with one of the armed forces, and I can remember sitting there when the Holy Spirit wanted me to pray this prayer. So I prayed for the Holy Spirit to sweep over the warring lands and to bring peace. So he is covering it, even though we perhaps can't see it yet, but he's there and he's working through all these warring lands. Just thought I'd just bring that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just first of all, while this is my first opportunity to speak tonight, and I've got a few papers to present, I'd just like to pass my regards on to the Lionesses on Sunday, and also my best wishes to our MP Ed Arger. Councillor Chubb, thank you very much for bringing this motion. We have brought several motions as we're drawing to the close and the 80th anniversaries of the Second World War. I was really heartened to hear about your father in the Royal Navy. My grandfather was also in the Royal Navy. We used to have a joke a little bit at his expense. He never classed himself as a war hero, like many. He served in the Royal Navy, got on a ship, sailed from Plymouth, went to the theatre of Japan, and already they surrendered. Maybe they knew he was coming, I don't know. However, then you touched on about Royal Navy boxing. My grandfather was a Royal Navy boxer, and one of his sparring partners was Randolph Turpin, who ended up becoming the world middleweight crown champion from Sugar Ray Robinson. So it's amazing how a chamber can bring everyone all together like that, and those kind of stories. That all said, a lot of my work that I've done for the Royal British Legion, it tended in the 90s and early noughties, it tended to work mainly with people who had served in the Burma and the Far East theatre rather than the European theatre for various different reasons. But when we worked, and it was very much an honour to work with people on there. So in 1995, I worked with the Twyford District Royal British Legion. I remember it very well. I was only about 16 at the time. And we raised a good chunk of change for VJ Day, as the country was celebrating mainly VE Day, and you're dead right to bring this up. We raised a good chunk of money for our local veterans here, and I still remember that party that we had. I won't go into it here because some of those comrades who were in there and people who were there are no longer with us. But there was a lot of fun to be had, and we, as I say, we raised a lot of money for charity there. But it was something that we're drawing to a close of the 80th anniversary. And probably touching on to what Councillor Gordon was saying, there is a lot of issues that are happening and facing the world at the moment. And again, going back to what Councillor Brown here was saying, people were fighting for peace and a better world. And I hope and pray that those who are fighting injustice at the moment get their justice out in the world, and all that where they have faced injustice are able to say it out loud and in a court where people can hear them. And if you think about all the injustices that's happening in other theatres, Ukraine for one example, and for various other theatres of conflict, we must continue to fight for peace. Sometimes that's a very brutal and difficult part. But I fully welcome this, and I'm very pleased that you brought this up. And as I say, this is a close to the motions of the Second World War. And may God bless all those veterans and all those who served with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I confirm that no other member wishes to speak? Okay, we will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you and choose either for, against, or abstain. What's everybody voted for? Thank you. Item number 9, Cabinet recommendation to cancel Treasury Management Annual Report. I will now invite a portfolio holder for Corporate Finances, Property and Resources, Councillor Cox, to present the Cabinet's recommendation to cancel in relation to the Treasury Management Report 2024-2025.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I first thank Councillor Chubb for your motion? It almost appears a little bit crass now to start talking about money after such a moving account, but that is my responsibility to present this Treasury Management Report to full Council. I'm pleased to propose this annual report covering the Treasury Management activities for 23-24 financial year. No new borrowing has been undertaken in the year, and borrowing remains within our statutory limit, although it should be noted that some of the indicators in the appendices have been updated to reflect the change in accounting requirements relating to leases which have had to be brought onto the balance sheet. The investment return for the year was 5.27% compared to 5.07% in 23-24, which was seen in the outturn reports, and it has had a positive impact on the investment returns and has helped to mitigate some of the financial pressures being faced by the HRA and contributing to an underspend on the general fund. This is despite a fall in the base rate. The Council continues to perform exceptionally well against its benchmarking group. The valuation of the Council's property fund continues to show a book loss, but the position continues to improve in this regard, and the dividend also remains positive. Due to an extension to the statutory override, this loss has not had to be realised, although the Council does hold a reserve to mitigate this should the need arise once the override ends. The current reserve that we hold in relation to this is actually higher than the potential loss now. I wish to thank the finance team for their hard work in this area and securing the investments whose returns have helped ease the pressure on exceptionally tight budgets for this administration, and therefore I'm happy to propose the recommendation at 2.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. I will now open this item to debate. Invite members to raise their hand to indicate if they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no other member wishes to speak? We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for, against, or abstain. So that's 25 for. Thank you. Item number 10, Cabinet recommendation to cancel reinstatement of Melton Country Park Bridge. I will now invite a portfolio holder for the Corporation Governance, Environment and Regular Service, Councillor Clancy, to represent the Cabinet recommendation to the Council in relation to reinstatement of Melton Country Park Bridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure you're all aware the Country Park Bridge was swept away during the January floods, causing extensive damage to just over 50% of the bridge. The reinstatement of the bridge is essential. It's a key part of the country park, which, as you know, is an important rural green space, much used and loved by local residents, visitors and tourists alike. An alternative to replacement of the whole bridge could be just to repair, but this is somewhat short-sighted, as the remaining part of the bridge requires structural attention. Just patching it up is not acceptable, as outlined in Appendix 1 to this report, as no doubt we've all read. It is proposed that £200,000 will be made up of insurance contribution plus allocation from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, Rural England Prosperity Fund and relevant 106 funding in an amount from capital receipts. And that's all set out in section 8 of the report in the appendix. Should Council tonight agree to adding this reinstatement of the bridge to the capital programme, we can commence the process of obtaining a permit to undertake works from the Environment Agency, which may take up to 3 months, and concurrently to the permit application, preparatory work will take place. It is intended that by the end of August, the surveying and design work will have been completed. It is essential we carry out this work without too much delay, and to enable this to happen, due to the uncertainties of the total cost, an amount has been included in the unforeseen additional costs, as outlined in 4.12 of the appendix. I believe the replacement of the bridge clearly demonstrates how much of a priority the country park is to us all, and our joint commitment to improving and maintaining our green spaces, as they are so important for health and well-being of our communities. I therefore propose a recommendation at 2.1 of this report. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate if whether they wish to speak. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, Councillor Glancy, just on behalf of the Conservative Group, we're fully supportive of this, and thank you for bringing this forward so quickly, and for the work that you've put into it, because I think you've done the right thing by making sure it's future-proofed. So, again, on behalf of the Conservatives, thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wholly supportive, as is Councillor Brown, of this expenditure. I think it's necessary. It's just reading the report, there was somewhat concern, and I wondered if I could seek assurance. There is an implication within this that the bridge was not, and is still not, in a stable position, even other bits of it, that the wood has deteriorated, rot or whatever. And I just want to be assured that we are doing regular inspections on the bridge, because flooding really shouldn't cause a bridge like this to collapse. That's because, as I understand it from people I've spoken to, there wasn't a huge current going through it or anything like that. It was just flooding. My concern is that flooding should not, in a stable bridge, cause it to collapse.
One moment, I'll let Councillor Sharp first, and then I'll let you come back to it. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one thing that doesn't concern me at all, and that it was a great idea to do it. It was just more to have local contractors being able to support it and issue prices and stuff like that, rather than giving it to the big multinational companies. That was my only concern, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member wishing to speak? Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I did raise some of these points with the portfolio holder directly, but also I think Councillor Cumbers had, because Councillor Cumbers and myself had worked in the insurance industry in a bygone age. I don't know, maybe I worked there a lot longer ago, I don't know, but when I saw some of the media reports, and I think it was probably reflecting some of the highlights of the report. So there were some legitimate questions that maybe the media and some of the public were asking was it, you know, if it was fully insured, why don't you get the full payout? And there were some questions that I had posed to the portfolio holder and Cabinet to have answered. Councillor Cumbers had, through her understanding of how insurance worked, had reassured me, because I think you had already asked the same questions, and the Cabinet members have come back to me of those scrutiny questions I was asking. I do believe, because I did say this particular point, if the policyholder, being the council, was not satisfied that the insurer was paying the full amount of what they believed it was insured for, you can accept the amount and then take it, because it's a regulated industry. I will leave that point to the portfolio holder, because she gave me the response and the reassurance. And to be fair, what Councillor Evans was saying, there were some questions that reassurance was needed. But to be fair, all the questions that I had posed, I think Cabinet and officers had already posed and had the answer. Sometimes, all I will say to those in the public realm, we do ask the questions ourselves as well. We don't all agree. And first of all, I was asking some difficult questions as well. It's easy just to take the highlights of the paper. What I will say, and I did say this to the Chief Executive, I think while there's executive summaries, I do understand why people probably thought the council probably was getting shortchanged. But I feel more reassured from listening to the portfolio holder and other members who've also asked the same questions, that I think we've probably got the best deal out of the insurer. If we haven't, please make sure that we do, it's a regulated industry. Always challenge the insurer. And one thing I will say to anyone, if the insurer's always giving you an offer, always reject the first one.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed, would you like to come back before I go to Councillor Clancy? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, because Councillor Clancy will wind up, won't she? I think the points I've heard are all valid and that they've been answered. And can I take this opportunity to welcome Councillor Evans into the chamber? It's good to hear your voice again, and with some wise words and questions. Certainly, the insurance package is something that was on the table when I arrived, as it were. And insurance claims are notoriously difficult. We know this, but I've been reassured that we've done all we can with this. On the issue of why did it collapse with such a weak current? Well, of course, the thing about water is that it can cause weakness over a period of time, and then there's a sort of a straw that breaks the camel's back. So I think Councillor Evans's question about were there checks being done more routinely to see if that was occurring, I think that's something that we will take away as we prepare to replace the bridge. But I'm grateful for the support of everybody to get the job done, because we need to get it done. And I'm grateful to the officers for being ingenious in putting the funding package together, because it's not easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clancy.
Yes, thank you. And to continue on from Councillor Allnutt, yes, the stability of the bridge, you did ask that question. Well, I actually saw the force of that water, and I can understand why part of the bridge was severely damaged. But bearing in mind it's been up for quite a number of years now, so that could have added to it as well. But I will offer assurances that any new bridge will be frequently inspected by our environment maintenance team. Local contractors, yes, it will go out to normal tendering. Local contractors being encouraged to sort of bid for the work as well. And also we do have the best deal we could possibly get from the insurers. We didn't settle for the first offer. We kept going and going until we got more. And I don't know whether the officer wanted to comment further, but I will leave it to Michelle to say anything further if you wish to comment more. Thank you.
Thank you. So just something to comment on in terms of inspections and monitoring and maintenance. So you recall in 2021, the council carried out a repair of the bridge, and that was a result of ongoing monitoring to look at the condition of that. And one of the things that came through very clearly in the structural survey is we could continue to monitor and to maintain the remainder of the bridge, but the lifespan would be limited. So it feels like the best thing to do at this time, but it's not an absence of monitoring and maintenance that has resulted in that. Just in terms of the insurance position, absolutely from an officer perspective as well, just to give you that reassurance that we have ongoing dialogue with our insurance company, and we have a really strong working relationship, and they were very quick to bring the right experts onto site to allow us to really understand what was happening, leading to the recommendation for the wider repair. And just to remind the council that back in 2008, this council obviously made a significant insurance claim and has really robust insurance arrangements in place, and indeed continues to revalue assets from our insurance perspective as necessary. And the bridge was actually revalued the year prior, which has increased its value and therefore also increased our ability to draw a significant amount from there. Just to comment on the local contractor matter also, the slight difference with the situation here is that because our insurers carried out the initial structural survey, they brought the experts that they appointed in to do that. We've not yet resolved our position in terms of the final procurement of the works. That work is ongoing, but what we didn't want to do is create a delay in securing the budget to enable that work to happen. So we will continue to work with the portfolio holder while we resolve that and finalise our position. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system and choose either for, against, or abstain. That's 25 for. Thank you. Item 11, Cabinet recommendation to cancel Safer Melton Partnership Strategy Plan. I will now invite the portfolio holder for Corporation Finance, Property and Resources, Councillor Cox, to represent the Cabinet's recommendation to cancel in relation to a Safer Melton Partnership Strategy Plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was quite a mouthful, wasn't it? Okay, thank you. I'm happy to propose this strategy to the Council. The Borough of Melton remains a low crime area, although every crime matters to the victim of it. The priorities identified within this strategy come from extensive consultation with residents and partner agencies. Tackling crime and keeping our community safe is a non-partisan issue, and the themes identified, I believe, we can all recognise as our community's concerns. Many thanks to the OPCC for his support of my request to award the partnership a response fund. This allows us to have the flexibility to support patterns of crime that become emerging trends, because as we all know, such crime patterns can occur very quickly, and we as a partnership need to be able to respond equally quickly. The strategy looks at the causes of crime, and I wholeheartedly support the local police's current initiatives around focusing on drugs within our community, as they lead to lots of the offending identified. The strategy also provides us the flexibility with the response fund to tackle emerging crime, as the face of crime has changed dramatically over recent years, with much of it moving online. I thank the officers from the Safer Communities team and the legal team for their dynamic action in enforcement of closure orders over the past year. The partnership working involved is how we will truly tackle crime. With the strength of our local partnership, I have every confidence that this strategy will turn into constructive action, and I'm happy to propose the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. I will now open this item to debate. Invite members to raise their hand to indicate where they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no member wishes to speak? So we will now proceed with the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for, against, or abstain. That's 24-1. Councillor Childs stepped outside. Item 12, recommendation and report from the committee's Scrutiny Annual Report. I will now invite the Chair of Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Mike Brown, to represent the Scrutiny Report 24-25.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This time last year, I saw the blood drain from the Mayor's face when I said, let me take you through the report line by line. And he was highly relieved when I immediately afterwards said I was only kidding. And likewise this year, the report is in front of you. I don't intend to take you through it in any detail. A couple of things I would like to say, though. I mean, one is I'm actually honoured and I feel privileged to have been chairing the Scrutiny Committee for the last 2 years. And I've been very grateful throughout that time for the hard work and dedication of all committee members and the contributions they've made to its work. Scrutiny does stand slightly to one side from other parts of the council function. It's very much member-led. It sets its own work programme, and it's there to allow some in-depth analysis and discussion of important issues to do with the workings of this council. And I certainly feel we've made some significant contributions over the course of the last year, over the last 2 years, to policy development in a number of areas, in particular to do with housing, for instance. I'd also like to thank all the officers. I have to mention Adam Green as the scrutiny officer for the council, and his support has been invaluable, but all the officers who've taken part in the working committee have made it possible for us to do our job, and I'm very grateful for that. And other than that, I'd like to just commend the report to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'd like to second, please, but can I just add, I'd like to pass on the same thanks to all the officers and all the members of the committee. I think it's a great example of where us all working together for the benefit of the people of the Melton Borough. This is one of the committees that works really, really well when we work together to move it forward. So I'm very happy to second this report.
Thank you. I will now open this item for debate and invite members to raise their hand and indicate whether they wish to speak. Allnutt.
Wrong button. I was trying to vote, not speak. Yes, I'd like to thank the Scrutiny Committee and the Chair and the Vice Chair for their work over the past year and indeed 2 years. It is right that the Cabinet is scrutinised and brought to account and tough questions are asked, but also that there is a process of constructive review and proposals to improve policy going forward. And I think this has been the highlight of this council, actually. That is the way you can really get into the detail without too much sort of rancour. So I found it a great support for the council. If at times it's been a bit of a headache for me, but that's as it should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I haven't been back on the council very long. Always thought that scrutiny really ought to be for the opposition, but it doesn't matter, because I do think the chair does an excellent job. He gives everybody the right to speak, whether we're saying nonsense or not, but we're not, because I think scrutiny is so important to any council. I think it is something that we all ought to take on board, and I think this council does just that, and I'd like to thank the chair very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I confirm no other member wishes to speak? If so, I will open this to the vote. Please use the, no vote going.
Yeah, we're just noting.
Just noted, okay. We move straight on to item 13. Recommendation and reports from the Committee and Audit and Standard Committee report. I invite the Chair of Audit and Councillor Higgins to present the Audit and Standard Committee Annual Report 2024-2025.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very similar to the previous paper, but from Audit and Standards point of view. Audit and Standards is a non-partisan committee. While it's politically balanced, all members come to it with clean hands. In terms, I would like to thank my Vice Chair, Councillor Jim Mason, for sometimes, maybe while I was on paternity leave, whether I'm allowed that as a councillor, I don't know, but he had to step in and help me out there. So thank you very much for that, Jim. I'm very grateful to you and the rest of the committee members. Interestingly enough, one of the times where Audit Standards marked its own homework, I wasn't able to be there because of, well, for other reasons, sometimes probably more important reasons. But you will note what the committee has sort of said. Part of one of the elements we are trying to insist on more training. One of the things we've certainly asked for is training and some mock parts on standards as well. And what has been very useful in the last year is we are now supported with an external auditor. Now, Melton is no exception from the not being able to have the support of external auditors, because that's been a bit of a national, probably a national backlog, it says in the report. Some would say it's a bit of a disgrace, really, but that said, this is a whole industry thing. However, since our new external auditors have been in place, they've been available to me if I've asked a question. They've attended every meeting from what I remember. They are very approachable, and it is of note where one of the committee recommendations is for us to meet privately with the external auditor, and that means not with Melton Borough Council officers, I believe. So where members can meet with the external auditor and probably share either some points or concerns that they may have. Interestingly, I have to thank the committee for marking its own homework in fully complies with everything else, even in my absence. So you must have also marked that the chairmanship was all right there. So thank you very much, everybody. But no, in all seriousness, I'm very grateful to all the committee members that come along and attend, and also put some very good points. I'd like to thank Councillor Ian Atherton, who always asks the right questions. Just as we're about to move to the next paper, let me ask this question. But to be fair, they are always very good questions, and I will talk about some other things a bit later on because I'm presenting other papers. But this is just for note. And just before I sit down, I would like to thank Dawn Garton for all of her support of the Audit and Standards Committee. And one thing I'm very grateful to Dawn for is she supports that Audit and Standards are able to hold the council to account in our own capacity and our friends in Cabinet. But equally, Dawn always says the line, please challenge me as well, and to be fair with all my colleagues on Audit Standards, I think we do quite robustly. So thank you to all the members, and I commend the report to Council. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder?
I'm more than happy to support this. I second it.
I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no other members wishes to speak? And the recommendation is to note, and I confirm that this report has been noted by the Council. Item 14, recommendation and reports from the committee's censure report from the Standards Subcommittee. I will now invite the Chair of Audit and Standards Committee, Councillor Higgins, to represent a censure report from the Standards Subcommittee.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. It is not necessarily a privilege to present this report. This is a very difficult paper. I take no pride in moving and recommending this censure to full council. It is a very serious matter what I'm asking the council to do. Equally, the recommendations are there, which is at 2-1. What I would like all members, before they do vote, if they have not read the victim impact statement, which is a restricted paper, please do not vote until you have read that. If you need time, I would suggest you read that now and not necessarily listen to what I'm going to say. That impact statement was one of the most powerfulest documents I've ever read in this council, and I have been a councillor since 2015. I will go as far as to say I have worked on employment tribunals and employment hearings. It is equally one of the most powerful documents I have ever read. The council employed Mr. Lewin, who is a very respected barrister of standards in local government. Mr. Lewin's report was very clear in his investigation, which I believe was just and fair to all parties, including complainant and respondent. That said, he found breaches in the Code of Conduct. And let me be clear, the last time our standards were known to have been breached was, I believe, in 2020. However, that particular process had been deemed unfair and the council had issued an apology. And the reason I bring that part up is I would not allow any standards process to be manifestly unfair, because I would uphold the standards process above all that. However, the committee, when it became to its deliberations, I will discuss in a moment, but I will talk through the various points that not only Mr. Lewin's report found and the independent person also agreed with these findings, that Councillor Gordon had failed to comply with the code because Councillor Gordon failed to treat the officer with respect, and at 5.5 on page 179, and I will let the members read that. At point B, I will not bully a person, and in ACAS's definition states that bullying is offensive behaviour or misuse of power that undermines, humiliates or injures the recipient. And Mr. Lewin had put this in his report, which, sorry, just as the moment happened, it goes off. Which is so I just want to quote it word for word. So Mr. Lewin had wrote, I note that Councillor Gordon had told me her intention was not to upset the officer. However, it is generally recognised that in considering an allegation of bullying, it is the intention of the perpetrator is not determinative. Instead, it is the perception of the individual who is subject to the bullying behaviours that matters. And he cites a case law in regards to that. Therefore, even assuming that there was no intention, and I've changed the words there, to cause distress, I would attach little weight to the motives and the motivations in the draft response by the respondent, which is Councillor Gordon. In any case, it appeared to me from our interview that there was little insight into the damaging effect that the words had caused, and especially to the suggestion that a mountain might be made out of a molehill. I've changed some of the words there. However, that was in Mr. Lewin's report there. It is absolutely fundamental that that is understood not just by everyone in this chamber, but that we also are there for officers as well. In respect to failure to promote equalities, Mr. Lewin and the committee did not find that Councillor Gordon had breached this part of the code. And in failing to bring the role into disrepute, the comments made were not relevant to the matter that was debated at full council, and during those comments were directed, it was believed, and it undermined public confidence in the councillor's ability to perform the duty. Now, the committee found in certain sanctions that were appropriate. I will talk about those in a bit wider. The formal censure, which is here today, the subcommittee will publish its findings in respect to the conduct. The monitoring officer, and this part was important, will organise counselling support for the respondent to understand the context and the impact that the comments were in, and the environment concerned. And due to the impact on the officers, it was to exclude Councillor Gordon from the council buildings for a period of 90 days, which started from the 23rd of June to the 21st of September, other than, obviously, attending council meetings and any personal matters which Councillor Gordon could be here as a resident. That, the standards regime has limited sanctions, and let it be known that the Standards Committee did consider other sanctions available. However, in respect to Councillor Gordon, this was the first time she was before the Standards Committee. So there was mitigation that we felt on there, but we felt this sent a reasonable message, and therefore the recommendation is to formally censure Councillor Gordon in relation to the findings of the subcommittee, and Council formally notes that it was inappropriate to refer to the Council officer during the debate on the report on the 18th of April 2024. The rest of the recommendation is there, but it is one of the most serious matters, and I just wanted to commend that to this Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I agree with every word that's been said. The Chamber, I find it a very difficult process myself. I was on the committee, subcommittee, but I will second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate, but can I remind members that the role of the Council is not to view the decision of the subcommittee, nor to consider the debate to be merits of the case. The findings have been lawfully made by the subcommittee. The only role of the Council is whether to agree to the subcommittee's recommendation that the findings are justify formal censure of reasons set out in the report. I invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Councillor Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say about the mounting out of a molehill. I'll explain that, and I did explain it to Matthew Lewin. I think it's Matthew Lewin. And all I want to say is, years ago...
Go on, we're not here to review the case.
No. I just want to explain about the mounting out of a molehill. That was nothing, that was just something of my own personal experience that I said might have been an experience of the councillor concerned, but only said might. It wasn't saying it was, and I said, and I made it out, you know, it's like a mountain out of a molehill, but that was my experience, and I thought it could have been hers at that time as well.
Thank you. Can I confirm if any other member wishes to speak? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's be clear about this, and it's something I've nearly done 30 years as being a councillor. There is a standard that the public expect of people who are on this council or any council. Here's the public standard. Here's where we are. We have to, and I thank Councillor Higgins, I know we've had our differences in the past, but I thought it was a very eloquent and pointed speech, especially the part where it's not what the perpetrator of this issue was thinking, it's what it did to the person who was affected by it. And that is the point we must remember when we ever make personal comments about an officer or another councillor. We should be careful and think what our actions could do. And this was not the case, I agree with Councillor Higgins, in this case. And it was unacceptable, and I wholly endorse what Councillor Higgins has said. Thank you.
Can I confirm that other members wishes to speak? We will now proceed to the vote. Yes.
Well, thank you everyone for the comments, and thank you there. It is very important that none of the words that were said were denied or anything else. So they were found as a matter of fact. That all said, as I say, it was a very difficult hearing. I would like to thank Councillor Gordon, who did say at the end of it that you found it was a fair hearing as well. And one thing, I'd like to pass my compliments to our monitoring officer as well, and Mr. Lewin, because I believe that the standards process is firmly robust enough now. So I'm very pleased that we have those proper processes now in place to protect everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for or against, abstain. So we got 23 for and 2 abstention.
Could I have my vote recorded, please? Thank
Yes.
you.
Item 5. Item 15, appointment of the independent person standard procedure. I will now invite the monitor officer to present the appointment of the independent person to the standard procedure report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As members are probably aware, the standards process has a number of statutory requirements. One of those is that during the process, when you're deciding whether to investigate allegations or when you are making a determination on whether a breach has occurred, you have to engage the independent person or more than one if you're able. There are several definitions that apply to that. I don't intend to go into them all in detail, but safe to say the independent person is someone who's not a councillor, hasn't been a councillor, isn't related to a councillor, and it gives degrees of separation, if you want to call it that, for how close they may be. And it, as I said, requires them to be engaged at particular purposes. The legislation states that they can only be appointed if they meet that criteria about independence, if we've advertised the position, if they've made an application, and then that a majority of the total number of members of the council votes in favour of their appointment. And that's important to remember. It's not just the number who are voting, it's the total number of members of the council. In terms of this process, we have a monitoring officers group which consists of all the monitoring officers in Leicestershire, and we have periodic meetings about various matters. But it was agreed at the end of last year that we would carry out a joint exercise for this recruitment. Since that does several things, it saves the expense to an extent of advertising. It means that we have potentially a bigger pool of people to reach because the advertisements are going out across the county. It means we have one selection and interview process, and then it means that we have ultimately a pool of people who we can use when circumstances require. That was led by Blaby and Charnwood Borough Councils. They've done most of the work, so I have to thank them for that. The applications were received from 5 existing independent persons who are working across Leicestershire, including those used by Melton Borough Council previously. And so they were deemed to be satisfactory from the outset because they're doing the job very well. We had 2 new people who applied who hadn't done this role before but had done very similar things and are, having been interviewed, are considered to be appropriate for the role. So the recommendation is to appoint all 7 persons named. There are some further details in the appendix to the report regarding those individuals. We are satisfied that they meet the criteria in the Act, and so on that basis my recommendation that's stated in the report is that all 7 should be appointed.
Thank you. Do I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose, and may I say that I have no, for the benefit of members, I have no reason to believe that any of the names given have any cause for concern, and I have complete confidence in the process that's been gone through to arrive at that set. And thank you to the all concerned.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second this motion. Thank you.
I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Can I confirm that no members wishes to speak? If so, I will proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you and choose either for, against, or abstain. That's 25 for, so the motion is carried. Item 16, Police and Crime Panel Representative. I will now invite the Monitor Officer to represent the Police and Crime Panel representation report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is quite a straightforward matter. As members will be aware, at the annual meeting of Council, we make a number of appointments to outside bodies. In May this year, we made an appointment in terms with the recommendation made at the time for Councillor Cox to be the representative. The County Council administer the Police and Crime panel, and they have several criteria they take into account. The first one being political balance, but that it can be overlooked where the expertise of the individual is considered appropriate, and so it doesn't follow quite the same political balance rules as ordinary council committees do. Following that meeting, it's been suggested that Councillor Butcher takes over the role as representative, and that Councillor Cox is then the substitute. This has been discussed with the Police and Crime panel and the officers that support them. They have no difficulty with that proposal. They're satisfied it meets the requirements in terms of political balance and expertise, and for that reason the recommendation is made to make that change.
Do I have a proposer?
Delighted to propose, Madam Mayor, on a largely technical issue, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank both Councillor Butcher and Councillor Cox for the work that they've been doing in the area of police and crime generally and antisocial behaviour, and they are the right people for the job in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second this motion. I believe Councillor Butcher is the ideal person to take over from Councillor Cox, so well done.
I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate where they wish to speak. Can I confirm the other member wishes to speak? If so, we will proceed to the vote. Please use the electronic voting system in front of you. Choose either for, against, or abstain. So it's 17 for, 8 abstentions, so the motion is carried. Item 17, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Annual Report 24-25. I will now invite the portfolio holder for Customer Service, Communities and Helping People, Councillor Carter, to represent the Equality and Diversity and Inclusion Annual Report for 24-25.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is our annual qualities report. It shows good process and focus on this important area of work. As portfolio holder, I will continue to attend qualities meetings with our officers and continue the great work from Pat Cumbers. I'd like to propose this recommendation, and the lead director and I happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Carter, are you proposing this?
Madam Mayor, I just said proposed, didn't I?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very pleased to second this and to welcome Councillor Carter into his new role. He's entered into it with great enthusiasm and is getting well read into it, and he brings to it a quality which is most valuable, because unlike old codgers like me, we tend to read too much and speak too much, but Councillor Carter gets down to the practical side of things and feels for people at the grassroots and where they're coming from. And he's a great asset to the team, and I'm very grateful. So delighted to second the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate. I invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. I can confirm that no other member
Sorry,
wish.
Madam Mayor, can I just sorry, just one thing. I'd just like to thank Aisha for this report. Thank you. She's done a very good report. Thank you.
Thank you. I can confirm that other member wishes to speak. I recommend this is to note, and I can confirm that this report has been noted by the council. And the meeting is closed at 8:10.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Mayor of the Borough of Melton, Councillor Siggy Atherton.